Welcome back, SethBling here. And today I want to show you my design for a really simple two-way controllable flying machine. It's not touching the ground and you can fly with it. Let me first demonstrate it, then I'll talk a little bit about it. So you get in, you can either right-click this one or this one. If you click this one, you'll go this way. And if you want to stop it, you hover your mouse over this other note block over here and you just hold down right-click. And if you want to go the other way, click on this one and you'll start flying off. And this works as high as you want in the air. You can hover your mouse over this note block and hold down right click and you'll stop. Now if you're like way up in the air and you want to get out of the minecart, that's okay, because you'll always land right next to it, on this piston next to it. There's another seat over here. So yeah, this is a really simple design. A lot of this is not anything new. I'm just kind of new to flying machines myself. The one thing that I really couldn't find anywhere else is the use of these note blocks to control the flying machine. Now the note blocks basically provide updates for these observers, and this is, I guess, new in 1.13 that note blocks are no longer tile entities, so they can actually be pushed around. But every time you right click a note block, it provides an update, and that allows you to start and stop the machine. So I'll go over how it works. I'll do a quick tutorial block by block, and then I'll show you this vertical design that works on a similar principle. Okay, so basically you have an observer here that powers this piston, and observer here that powers this piston. So if you right click a note block here, this piston will push, and when this piston pushes, this observer is going to trigger and power this one, and this one will pull the remaining blocks. So we can see that push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. So these two sticky pistons are what power the whole thing. Now it's important that the observer outputs a 1-tick pulse, because that allows the sticky piston over here to push without retracting this whole section of the flying machine. Now, I haven't really seen the use of this before. So this piston doesn't look like it's doing much right now. But if I spam right-click on this note block, you see basically this piston just pushes over and over. And so what that does is when the piston is at least partially extended, this piston over here is not able to push this segment. And so it gets kind of stuck and the whole machine comes to a stop. And so when you're flying this direction, if you spam this note block, it'll stop the machine. And then the same thing if you're flying the other direction, there's the same thing over here. So this whole thing is rotationally symmetric. Right click, spam right click on this and it'll stop it. It's important that you use this one or this one to stop it and not the kind of engine note blocks. You can actually stop it. So if I start it here and then I come over here and I press it, either eventually it'll either stop it or it'll just turn it around, and that's cool. So it just turned it around there, and there it turned it around. It can also stop it. The odds seem to be a little bit lower. Oh, there we go. But that's fine. But if you spam it, bad things can happen. So actually, let me get in. You'll notice that they also stop when they're apart, as opposed to when they're like these two halves are together. If you use the end pistons, but let me go ahead and start this thing, and then if I spam, let's say, okay, so this is what you really don't want to do. If I spam this one, which is the sort of like go note block. All right, now this looks much different than it did before, and this is actually just broken the machine. All of the slime blocks are now touching each other. And so no matter what you do now, this thing is not going to start again. And that's why you need to be careful and only use these ones. This sticky piston's even stuck off on its own. Yeah, so you need to be careful about that. Okay, I'm now going to show you how to build this. It's really straightforward, really simple. Put down a sticky piston and a slime block, and then sort of kitty corner to that, another sticky piston and slime block. Make a little L shape here on both sides. Now the note blocks go down. These are pretty easy to remember where they go. You need to put an observer down facing this direction. There's a little red dot here that needs to be going over this piston. Same thing on the other side. Now observer is going off the two ends of the L's, and sticky piston down here. Sticky piston down here. Now this is actually done. It works. Whoops, this one. This works, but there's no driver's seat. So to do that, you put a sticky piston here, or sorry, a slime block here, and a fence post here, and then you need to put a minecart down. So you just do it like that. Anyway, you want to get a minecart down there, and you can do one on the other side if you want a second seat. Just same thing. Now you have two seats. This is optional though, to have the second seat. That's all there is to it. It's actually super fast to build, really simple. Doesn't require that many materials. These sticky pistons at the end could also be regular pistons, but my inventory is full, so I decided I would just use sticky pistons for everything. Makes it a little bit simpler. And that's how you build it. Okay, so then there's this vertical design that works on the same principle. So you can see there's 4 note blocks. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. And then also you can see there's sticky piston, but they're facing vertically rather than horizontally. The design looks a little bit different because I had to orient things differently in order to be able to see everything from one spot. And I don't really like that basically, because you sit here, so you basically can't see this direction as you're going up and down. But anyway, let me show you how to operate it. To go up, you press this giant note block that's right next to you, and you'll start flying upwards. And yeah, again, you can't really see out this direction, which I don't love, but it still works. And then to stop going up, you spam right click here. By the way, I recommend that when you're spamming right click, that you use something. Basically, you don't have a placeable object in your hand, because sometimes you can miss and then place a block and it can get really messy. Then to go down, you go ahead and click this one. And now we're going down. Now I could just let it go until I hit the ground, but I can also just spam this one, and I will also stop. Now when you dismount this one, there's no block to dismount onto if you're not on the ground. So you have to be careful, because if you move while you're here, you will move this minecart around, and it can be bad, especially if you like push it into this piston. But let's keep going down. Just land on the ground. If you are on the ground, then when you dismount, you'll just land on the ground, and that's fine. Be careful, because there's a couple of sticky pistons on the bottom, so you really want something not sticky below those. Sorry, slime blocks. I mean, there's slime blocks, and you really want something not sticky, like obsidian or glazed terracotta. So yeah, this works on the same principle. I'm not going to do a block by block tutorial, but I'll just point out all the pistons and all the observers. So there's a piston here and a piston here. These are facing opposite directions. Observer facing into it with a note block behind it. And then again, observer facing into this with a note block behind it. And then there's a sticky piston facing up here. This is what stops the contraption when you're going up. An observer pointing into the block below it. And note blocks are always behind the observers. And then this is the one that stops it when it stops the contraption when you're going down. So there's note block, observer, sticky piston pointing down. And that's, yeah, you can figure it out if you really want to. I don't think this is quite as useful because, I don't know, going vertically is just not as useful as being able to go infinitely in any direction, or well, in 2 directions. That's my design. Yeah, like I said, I was not able to find anyone else using note blocks as a start-stop mechanism for a flying machine. I'm sure someone else has done it, so I don't want to like take full credit for this, but I at least thought that idea was neat and could use a little bit of popularization, and I like this use of pistons off the end to just provide a temporary tile entity which stops the whole machine from flying. I hadn't seen that before either. I'm sure somebody else has done it, but and I'm not super well versed in redstone flying machines. Hope you found it useful. That's about it. Thanks for watching.